Alright, folks, welcome back to another Let's Play. We're going to continue our game. We're in October 1942. Now, yesterday, Sunday, I had a recording. I tried to do another live stream. Didn't make any announcements about the live stream, but I did actually play the scenario. It was quite interesting, but for whatever reason, the file, or rather the stream itself, didn't save. And so I think it crashed. Maybe something happened. I'm not sure. But I figured since I didn't actually record the stream, now I did save the file, the log file, but I actually made some mistakes, subtle yet important mistakes in the game. I figure might as well just do it again. And so this is now the second time that we do like a redo of the game. The last time was summer 42, but the outcome was effectively the same, right? The Germans achieved a really decisive breakthrough along the Orel, Kursk, Belgorod, Kupiansk kind of, sector of the front, basically the central sector of the front, directly east of Ukraine, right? Now, this game doesn't actually show you the borders of Ukraine in this game, right? It shows you the borders of Romania, shows you the borders of Russia, I believe. I think it does. Maybe it doesn't. I think these gray lines actually may be just kind of initial starting setups for different scenarios, like a 42 or 43 scenario. I thought it did show you Belarus. I guess it doesn't. But it does show you Poland, shows you East Prussia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. But I guess it presumes that everything east of that is the Soviet Union. And that's effectively what the Soviet Union was in 1939, which is when the game starts, when the conflict begins. But we actually don't see like, the Russia being broken up, or Soviet Union rather, being broken up into additional states or like districts, right? So there's no Ukrainian district, there's no Russia district. And then I guess there would be like more districts deep in the south, right? Caucasus would also be broken up into a few other areas as well. So I figured let's do the scenario again. I probably won't do too much of an analysis like I did before, but gives me time to practice, and I think we can still achieve some pretty interesting results. But since we're in October 1942 and there is the roll for weather, right? 50-50 chance that we get mud in October, and then also 50-50 chance that we get either mud or snow in November. I figure these next 2 months is what I'm trying to do for this actual recording here. And I'm thinking we may be able to continue a little bit further into that as we roll into 1943. But what's the overall situation? As you guys have been following, guys and or gals have been following. Um, I'm pretty sure my audience is mostly guys. I would assume it's mostly guys. Shouldn't make assumptions. I presume it's mostly guys, but you never know. There may be wargaming gals out there as well. But what's the situation? Moscow is definitely under siege. It's under a lot of pressure with the German attacks. In the last recording, the Germans did successfully take Tula. It's basically the equivalent of a battle of Stalingrad. I think the population size of Tula and Stalingrad are similar. I think Tula might be a little bit smaller. But, the Germans were able to push forward. We had an entire panzer army, 2 panzer corps that were pushing on Tula. And so that led to a relatively, I would say, decisive breakthrough. Now, it took some time. I think that battle for Tula began, and I think it was August 1942, and it wasn't until the end of September, so about 2 full months of fighting before Tula fell. Now, if you study the Battle of Stalingrad, technically the battle started July 17th, 1942, and it didn't end until February either 2nd or 3rd of 1943. So that's a very long battle. I think it's the single longest battle of World War II. I can't think of any other battle that lasts longer, any other land battle that lasts longer. I would say the only battles that I know of that would last longer than that would probably be the Battle of the Atlantic, which started technically in 1939, even before France fell. And then you also have the campaigns in China, right? The Japanese invasion of China lasted quite a while. I know the logistics were very complex over there. There was very limited supplies on both sides. So there may have been some areas that were fought for months, years. Certain cities that were fought for. I haven't actually done a deep dive, a deep study into the campaign of the Japanese attempted conquest of China. There's several phases of it, right? Technically started in like 1932 or 33 or 31 with the Japanese occupation of Manchuria, and then they continued, they expanded their invasion in 1937 with the conquest of the rest of mainland China. And then by 1941, I guess it was 1942 technically, December 1941, the Japanese kind of went global. You know, the Pacific Theater opened up, and there was additional campaigns and advances that took place in China during that time. So overall, like Hong Kong, for example, I think fell in 1942. So anyways, there's a lot to unpack. Let's confirm that. I'm gonna verify that real quick. Japanese conquest of Hong Kong. I want to know. It may have been earlier than that actually. Oh no, yeah, it was between December 25th, 1941 to 15th of August, 1945. Oh, that was probably how long they actually occupied it, right? Once Japan surrendered, they lost Hong Kong, right? Um, but the battle for Hong Kong apparently was about a month, couple weeks, 8th to the 25th of December 1941. That was when the Japanese attacked Hong Kong. There you go. So yeah, so let's continue this game. You can see the Germans have a lot of territory. We've expanded deeply into Soviet territory. We had those initial breakthroughs, what you would call Schwerpunkt in the German theory of war, right? The quote unquote Blitzkrieg. They broke through at different points. They were able to surround several Soviet armies. If we look at the stats that I've been able to store here, kind of keep track of, the Soviets lost the equivalent of 40 steps of units. Each step is about 25,000 troops. I think it's about 2 to 3 Russian divisions, Soviet divisions. I want to really emphasize Soviet in this kind of game that we play. But it was 40 by the end of the campaign. And I think it's also included crossing the Don River and taking Voronezh as well and encircling Voronezh. We also encircled Orel. There were several encirclements the German army succeeded in doing. That equivalates to about 1 million Soviet casualties, right? German casualties were also quite high, apparently. I mean, very, very, very high, according to this. 28 is what I calculate. And, that's the equivalent loss of about 28 German divisions, predominantly infantry divisions. But like in our playthrough, the Germans are pouring in kind of like some kind of a strategic reserve onto the Eastern Front, so they were able to sustain their losses. But 28 is pretty high, quite high. Not as high as Barbarossa, but definitely high. If we do 28 times 22,000, and we actually see how much casualties, I think it's like at least 500,000, right? 616,000 German casualties. So it's more than half of what we saw in Barbarossa, right? And if I go back to like Barbarossa, right, and I look at the 3 phases of Barbarossa, June, July to August, and then I guess phase 3 was like the autumn of 41. When we add up the German casualties, it's 21 in June, which is still very high. Another 11, almost 12 in July to August, so we're like at about 32. Plus another 12, it's 44, I think. So yeah, that's we're approaching over 1 million casualties in Barbarossa for the Germans. Let's see. It may have been less. Yeah, it says 924,000 is what I calculate here. So yeah, the simple takeaway is that the German losses are significant. Now I don't exactly know how many losses the German army sustained in Case Blue, the historical conquest of like the southern sector, right? Basically pushing on the Don River Bend, crossing over. I think they retook Rostov. They crossed over the Don River. Then they split Army Group South into 2 army groups, right? Army Group A went to the Caucasus. Army Group B went to Stalingrad. And I'm curious to know exactly how many German casualties were sustained up until like the main stages of Stalingrad, right? Before the Soviets launched their counteroffensive, before they encircled Stalingrad. and before they took all this territory, right, and pushed the German army back to their initial starting lines, right? By February 43, or I guess by the end of the winter campaign of 42-43, all the German gains that were achieved in 42 were effectively lost. I think they had a bridgehead in Krasnodar, right? And that would take a while before the Soviets eventually drove the Germans back over into Crimea, right? Crimea, and then like yeah, the Germans basically lost all the territory they had gained in the summer campaign. Now, one detail that's very important about the German offensive during summer 42, they had some initial victories around, I believe, Stalino and Vashilograd, perhaps. They did encircle several hundreds of thousands of Soviet forces there. They retook Kharkov or established kind of like a protective flank on Kharkov. But then after that, they pushed. And when they started pushing, presumably across the Donets River, and they pushed across this open steppe towards Voronezh, this kind of like central and southern flank, a lot of Soviet forces just hightailed out of there. They basically packed up the things on trucks and retreated. And the Soviets did like a very, very successful retreat. Individual units were able to avoid the German encirclements. So in terms of casualties on both sides, I would presume that like from say I guess July through like August of 42, the casualties were relatively low on both sides, I would assume, during this very decisive, like flanking, kind of expansive breakthrough phase of the fighting. And then things began to slow down as the German army crossed the Don River. The approaches of Stalingrad began. The Battle of Stalingrad started in July, but I don't think the fighting for the actual city itself, like into the city suburbs or urban sectors, didn't start until like August 42, right? I believe it was August. So there was a good month or so before the German army even reached the city where the battle technically began. There was a lot of heavy fighting that took place outside of the city. As the Red Army knew, they understood that Stalingrad was much more important than the German army did at the time, and it wasn't until the later stages of Stalingrad did the German army kind of like did Hitler politically make Stalingrad a much more important target because he wasn't succeeding pretty much anywhere else along the front right during this time. Progress in the south was slow. Um, Progress on Stalingrad was slow, and like he was looking for some kind of victory somewhere along the front, right? Somewhere in the war. And I think at that point he understood that the war was effectively lost. I mean, even with the failure of Barbarossa, I think he concluded that the war may have been lost, right? So anyways, pretty interesting scenario. If we look to the west, the British Army, British Expeditionary Force, successfully landed in Ostend. We secured the port. We also established a beachhead, and the German army has not been able to launch a counteroffensive yet on this position. And so that's kind of the game plan is to build up more reserves on the western front to attack this British beachhead, kick them out of the mainland before it gets any worse, right? And then further to the south, the British Army has been relatively slow the last few months, but Benghazi is fully secured, and the British Army has slowly been encroaching on these four major towns, or three major towns towards Tripoli, right? I think Sirte effectively is uh, kind of like under British control, presumably, because it's kind of more on the eastern side of this hex. But the objective for the British Army is still the same. We got to take Misurata, Homs, and eventually Tripoli if we want to kick the Axis out of North Africa, which is the main objective right now. And we had that decisive victory first around Tobruk, right? You could call it like the Battle of Tobruk or some kind of operation. And then the follow-up pursuit was successful as the Axis just retreated. The Afrika Korps retreated from Benghazi and made its way all the way to Tripoli. So there's that. So we'll start the log file. I'm going to start a new file because I mean I have the old file saved, but I don't want to just like go through it manually. And I figure let's just try again and see how it goes. So I'm going to call it, like double T, and let's see how it goes. We'll start with the British first. The British pretty much have that same objective, and we're presuming that it's Montgomery who's under command of the British Eighth Army right now, and he's taking his time, right? He's very methodical in his advance towards the new German line, the new Axis defensive line. The first thing I'm going to do with the British is that I'm going to reinforce Ostend. The good news is that the British HQ here acts as a port, and then we also have the port itself, Ostend. So presumably we can withdraw units using these two ports if necessary. I think the beachhead only acts as a port if it's uncontested. It acts as a mulberry is what they call it. And then we can also withdraw units through an invasion, a sea invasion, right? And we can blitz and pull two units out. The idea being that we can, if necessary, withdraw the bulk of the British units from this position if the Axis, the Germans do gain like substantial ground operationally in that battle. So what I'm going to do is activate this Allied HQ, this Supreme HQ. First thing I'm going to do is move this 8th Corps um, into Ostend and just kind of fortify that position. So one unit in, and I could also pull one unit out. I'm going to wait a little bit before I do that. That's two supreme moves. The third supreme move I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, I think, move up this British field HQ. I guess we'll move it right here. So now it is out of range of this major port here. So it's going to be in road supply. It's not going to be in sea supply or like regular supply, meaning the production costs go up significantly. It's going to cost 20 production points per HQ step to build it up. So the British are facing like logistical costs. Um, but I'm thinking like if we're gonna do this operation, we need to do it like quickly and decisively if we want to successfully take Misurata, which presumably looks pretty well defended. So it's gonna be the other supreme move. It's actually two supreme moves because it's in another front, right? It's in another theater. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is activate this Mediterranean Expeditionary Supreme Theater HQ rather, and I'm gonna move this British Armored Corps or Mech Corps rather, and we're going to move it on the flank here. And so now all four British Corps are in position to attack, and I think the game plan is to hit the flank of Misurata first, and then once the flank is exploited, we can go around and hit Misurata directly. That's the game plan. But we want to attack the line quickly and decisively because we don't want to deal with the German counterattack. So if we can pin down the Germans quickly, that's going to work really well for us. So that's it for the British. We got to roll for weather on the Eastern Front because it is October. It's even weather. In my last playthrough, we had a lot of mud. We'll see what the weather's like for this playthrough. I'm curious to see how the weather is going to change in this playthrough. So we'll switch over now to the Axis and see what they can do. You can see here that on the Western Front, we have just a lot of understrength German units. We got like the 90th Corps, that's pretty good. There's Armored Group G, that's also pretty good. The 64th. So like we could attack right now if we wanted to, right? It's not a bad idea to consider attacking, trying to just put some strategic pressure on the British. The only problem is I don't have any field HQs right now. All I have is OKW, which is at level 2 right now. And it's like I kind of want to wait until we have more units available to put pressure because I'm assuming the British have a lot of double defense. If there's any lessons that we learned from the Battle of Caen, is that the British are very well dug in with presumably a lot of like anti-tank guns. That's what the mech units represent. They basically are mobile anti-tank formations, anti-tank battalions, something like this. And they could either be like um, armored fighting vehicles that are not necessarily tanks, or it could be like companies of armor as reserves. If it was the Americans, they would have lots of tank destroyers. I think the British had something similar to tank destroyers, but I think the British were less mechanized than the Americans. So they mostly had like these like troop carriers that could carry around anti-tank guns, and that was their main way of establishing a anti-tank capability. The main focus on the British Army, I believe, was artillery, um, more than armor. It was a mix of both, but they had a lot of both for sure. But I think the Americans had a bit more, or at least more vehicles. So I don't think we're going to do any operations here for the Germans. I think we will wait a little bit longer and just try to build before we launch a decisive attack. But we can, maybe on the next turn, um, if the weather is favorable, maybe we do launch an attack and just put some strategic pressure on the British. And we also got to be careful with British counteroffensives, right? So it's a very delicate operation for sure. So we don't want like our formations getting totally destroyed in the attack and then the British responding with a decisive counterattack. That would be really bad. So I don't think we're doing anything on the west. In the southern front, I'm thinking, if we can, unfortunately, this Italian theater HQ is at level 0, but I'm thinking like we should probably reinforce um, the position a bit more if we can, right? That's what I'm thinking. Do something like that. Because the Axis line is actually, oddly enough, pretty vulnerable, right? This flank, even though we have a paratrooper militia unit here, I mean, the British could like decisively destroy this unit, and then if they decide to break through, they could actually encircle our African units over here. So, I don't know what we should do. Should we retreat? Should we try to reinforce the front line a bit more? What should we do, right? What's the game plan here? I don't want to use this HQ right now. I'd rather wait before using this HQ if at all possible. But I'm thinking like we should probably reinforce the line with more units. Would probably be the best thing to do. Or maybe have a reserve, some kind of like reserve, a rear guard, something. Because this flank, I calculated that one German step in the Mediterranean front is about 6,500 troops. So right now we have about something like 20,000 troops here on this flank. As far as like the amount of territory they're protecting a 120-kilometer long front. So if you do the math on that, what would it be? I think it'd be like 20,000 divided by 120. Tell you how many troops are how many troops are per kilometer. We have about 166 troops per kilometer. It's a relatively thin defensive line, right? I mean, 166 per kilometer is like, that's for one defensive line, right? If we have like, we probably only have one defensive belt here. Um, Presumably 166 troops is the equivalent of like maybe one or two companies of infantry. I would guess they may have like one or two anti-tank guns at best. They may not have any. They may only have like one anti-tank gun or two anti-tank gun. I don't think they have that many anti-tank guns, and we certainly don't have any armor or anything with this militia unit. So I think it is in our best interest to consider guarding this flank a bit better. But I don't want to use this HQ. We could also just like, I don't know, maybe like launch a preemptive offensive against the British, try to destroy this unit, and then pull back. That would be an interesting move. The only problem is that, oh, we could do it. Maybe we should do it. I mean, I have hindsight in 2020 from what happened earlier, but I'm thinking like let's try to destroy this British unit at all costs, and then we should still have enough operational range to get this formation to retreat. The only problem is that we need Sirte under control if we want to be able to retreat directly back to Misurata, right? Because it's going to be a disputed hex, and we can command across the disputed hex, but we can't withdraw across the disputed hex. And the idea is to go in and out. So if we do decide to do an operation, I think regardless of what happens, we kind of do need to, um, advance our units a bit. And we're gonna have to advance these militia units. The only way they can advance is with the theater HQ, right? And I really don't want to spend OKW right now. I don't think that's the wisest move. But I'm thinking maybe we do it anyways, just as a preemptive maneuver. Let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. I think it'll be an interesting kind of playthrough. I'm gonna activate uh, H, OKW rather. It's got 4 supreme moves, 2 on the Mediterranean front. I think we're gonna go ahead and activate the Africa Corps. We're gonna blitz right now, and I'm gonna send these 2 formations forward, and they're gonna directly attack. The idea is that we can destroy one British formation, it's going to make it much harder for the British to gain more ground. Um, it's going to be much harder for them to gain more ground later on in the campaign. So it's kind of like best defense is good offense. We'll also move up this Italian infantry, and I'll put it in Misurata. I think I want to leave it either in Misurata or on the flank of Misurata. The other two supreme moves I'm going to do is I'm going to move up these paratroopers. They're going to protect Surte. So we are going to retake Surte again. Now we can withdraw. And then the other move I want to do is advance this Italian militia unit and put it in Misurata as well. I think I want this 10th Italian army to be on the flank, if at all possible, and try to build up this flank as much as we can. The problem, of course, is that it's very hard to retreat this Italian unit because any units operating outside of roads lose their movement by one. So it's only going to be able to move one hex back to Homs. Like we couldn't pull it back to Tripoli, and if we wanted to do like a strategic withdrawal, say to Tunis, in case the Allies land in Tunisia, this Italian unit will not be available to like move by road. So it is a bit of a gamble to maybe what we do is we leave it in Misurata. We put one of the German mech unit, like this mech unit here in the flank, and then the Africa Corps can also travel back to Misurata. That might be the best plan, I think. This militia unit over here, um, I mean, like maybe leave it in Homes instead. I'm not sure what the best plan is here. Um, I guess it doesn't really matter. But we are going to blitz with this Africa Corps. We do have air support. Let's see how this battle goes. Um, so, let's punish the British for encroaching on our position too delicately. So let's see how this battle goes. Basically, quick German counterattack. This is Rommel's revenge. Is what we can call it. Um, Before I do that battle, let's do the Eastern Front. Eastern Front operations. It is clear weather, so I think the idea is right now we've taken Tula. Talked about it before, but like if we want to have any real chance of taking Moscow, we kind of need to secure these four areas around Moscow. We already took Tula, but I think there's still an incentive to push on Kaluga and Mozhaisk, right? And so that's what we're going to keep doing. I think I'm going to do a blitz this turn. I don't have that many strong HQs, right? I mean, we got two more under strength HQs for the next month, but I think we can afford a blitz. How we're doing on infantry reserves? We got some pretty strong infantry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 infantry reserves. 6 infantry corps in reserve. I think the idea is that we need at least 2 per battle to sustain the Battle of Attritia. We even have 2 more in Tula, so we have plenty of infantry reserves. I think this is a good time to blitz. We have enough infantry to basically launch 2 waves of combat in 2 hexes, both Kaluga and Mozhaisk. I'm going to go ahead and activate OKH as well. And the game plan here, we're going to move up this infantry. We're just going to pull out weak units, right? Pull out weak units, and then we're going to put in stronger units. That's basic formula. So we got to do 2 in and 2 out like that. That's it. 2 in and 2 out. What else? Here, yeah, let's pull out these under strength infantry. Put this guy here. I think this infantry can also be pulled out there. We'll go ahead and move up these 2 corps into Kaluga. And now we just need 4 more infantry, which we do have 2 in, I think it's Rezhev, right? And then we got 2 more. In fact, 4. We have 4 in total. So let's go ahead and move up another infantry corps over here. And also, I also got to point out that like we probably want to send more units up to the north to protect that flank there as well. So that's the game plan. I'm also going to move up, return one of the mech units, the 53rd. 1, 2, 3. In fact, if we can move it by rail, it might be better. But I decided I'm going to move it up north. Let's go ahead and do this move as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 2 supreme moves, a third one with the 53rd. That leaves us with 3 supreme moves left. So we probably could use another unit like in Zaporozhye. In case the Soviets do launch an amphibious invasion over here, it's good to have another reserve nearby. I feel like we have just a skeletal defense there. The question is which unit do I want to move around, right? I guess this infantry over here, right? This 29th could probably move down there. So I think I'll go ahead and do that as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's another 2 supreme moves. So that's 4 supreme moves, 5. We've got one more supreme move left. And I think the only thing I want to do, I think the only supreme move I really want to do now, maybe move this Romanian infantry, and I think we can actually put it in Bulgaria. I think it's allowed to operate in Bulgaria, and just protect this sea port over here. It's not a bad idea. This fourth army is not going to be relieved until we take Crimea, right? So let's just move it back. I think it's more than enough to defend Odessa, or I think it's called Odessa. Odessa, pronounced Odessa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like that. And in this way, we were able to defend as many ports as we can against any Soviet operation from Sevastopol. They totally control the Black Sea. So in theory, they could launch an amphibious invasion that way, and I'd rather not. So I just want to make sure I have like a nice skeletal defense, um, mostly Romanian, right? So it should be fine against the any Soviet operations, right, in that area. So that's it for strategic moves. Um, I just got to be like aware of just moving units more north, right? And then I think I may potentially blitz with Army Group A on the next turn. We got like armored corps. We got a Panzer Army here in the south. I think it'd be very wise if we like consider moving it, probably as a strategic reserve. I'm gonna actually pull it back and move it to Orel. Yeah, but we like want to make sure that Yelts is fortified against the Soviets, right? So I just want to be aware of that. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty decent setup. Not bad. Tula should be relatively easy to defend because it's double defense, the urban sector. But we have, I count one, two, three, I count 4 infantry, 5 infantry in reserve, all along, two reserve armies basically that we can keep using to launch these attacks on these sectors. So I'm pretty excited. We got air support, do that on both sectors, and now we are ready to continue the campaign against Moscow. The rest of the sector is relatively dormant. And I don't think I'm going to transfer reinforcements back to the back to the western front rather. We'll deactivate OK W and move it back to Berlin. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like that. Um, so it probably means we're not launching an attack. I mean, we could try to attack maybe even next turn, right? And it would be nice to attack with some air support for sure if we do decide to attack. By canceling OKW, right, and moving it to Berlin, we're trying to prepare for the winter, presumably. But in winter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's actually still out of range of Ostend, even during the winter. Um, yeah. What about let's see like Western Front. Starting the winter 42, it's gonna go down to single fire, which is a dang shame. So we won't have that much air support. So if we do want to attack with some air supports on this position, we probably should wait until the next turn to do that. How are we doing on Western Front production? Right now we're at 12 production points. We need like, I'm thinking, build up this Panzer Corps, build up this infantry that costs 12, and then we also need one more HQ build to build up this field HQ to actually launch the operation, and we would also need OKW as well for the operation. In other words, I don't think we'll be able to do it with air support. Not with these operations that we're doing in Libya at the moment, right? This preemptive blitz. Um, yeah. Okay, so that's that. Unfortunately, Not as many maneuvers as I had hoped, so we are pulling back OKW. Let's go ahead and start the battle in Libya and see how it goes. The British have the Western Desert Force, 3 British divisions. I think the British units are about 7,000 troops per step. So like if we look at Operation Compass, right, which is like the British kind of the equivalent of the British Blitzkrieg that we saw in North Africa. This was against the Italians early on in the campaign. The Italians invaded Egypt with one army, the 10th Army, and then the British counter attack with just one corps, which was the Western Desert Force, 36,000 men, right? So if it's 7,000 troops per step, right, I would assume, including the cadre, which is double, at full strength, the Western Desert Force, it would be about 35,000 troops, which actually makes a whole lot of sense. So they did attack with one corps. And they only suffered 500 killed, another 1,400 wounded. I guess in our game would have been negligible. While the British lost, at least in the, oh, I thought they lost a lot more than that. Oh, yeah, 133,000 POW, right? A lot of units were just put out of supplies during that campaign. But the British were able to make their way all the way towards Benghazi, and it was right around Benghazi that the Africa Corps arrived and launched their first offensive in the campaign. That was in I think it was spring '41. The British that or may have been like spring '41 that the Africa Corps launched that offensive. All right, so let's do this battle. Airstrikes go, no hits. The British roll, no hits. The Africa Corps has quadruple fire when attacking, so we can score hits on everything but a 1 or a 2. We can score hits on 3s and 4s, and then this mech unit also has double fire attacking in the Mediterranean front in the desert, so we got a lot of hit bonuses. In terms of infantry, the Africa Corps is the equivalent of like an entire infantry army, like 4 infantry uh, corps attacking, right? Basically the equivalent of like, well over, let's do it. Let's do the math on that. I think it's 4.5 times 4 times 22,000, right? 4.5 times 4, right? I want to see how many troops that is. The equivalent of 396,000 troops in terms of firepower, according to this game, right? If it was in the desert, if we like reduce that to like 6,500, it would be the equivalent of about 117,000 troops, right? So a large attack there, plus this mech unit, which is the equivalent of 2 attacking infantry. Yeah, you're looking at a lot of firepower here. Presumably, I would think just a lot of maneuver. Just a lot of ability to fire and maneuver for the Germans. Probably at this stage in October 42, we are seeing some long-barreled Panzer IVs, lots of Panzer IIIs. I don't think there were really any Stugs in North Africa. I don't know. Um, and then there's also the Flak 88s, which I don't know if they can be used very well offensively, but they were able to, the Germans were able to use them in some sort of tactical manner in North Africa. So let's see what the Africa Corps can do. They score 3 hits, and just like that, they totally break through. They totally break through, which is awesome. So the British just lost like about 30,000 troops there. Very decisive win. And now we can continue. Like we could continue the pursuit, right? Like we could try to attack this a large British cluster here. I'm thinking let's hold off on that, simply because um, I just don't think we have the firepower to attack. If we had if this Italian infantry army was at full strength, I would attack, but it's not. So I think I'm gonna wait. We're gonna pull back this mech unit on the flank, move the Africa Corps back here, go ahead and deactivate the HQ, and we're going to bring it back to Ohms. And the idea is we have now expanded our defensive line here. We've bought ourselves a little bit of time in the defense of Western Libya. So good access win there. We can keep track of the losses, right? We should do that. We're now in October. We got Soviet, Axis, and then I'll do Western Allies. I think the British, since it's the desert, I'll put a slash or something like that. The British just lost the equivalent of 4 divisions. of troops, 28,000 casualties there. All right, and then now we'll do the battles on the Eastern Front, starting with the Battle of Mos Heisk. Let's go. Airstrikes, double fire, 2 hits, very nice. Um, Soviets roll, they score 1 hit, and now the Panzers get to roll 2 Panzer Corps, followed by the infantry. It looks like we scored 3 hits, so only one more will count. So yeah, the Soviets actually lost more there. They lost about 50,000 troops there, 50,000 casualties. And then now we'll do the Battle of Kaluga, airstrike, also scoring half a hit. The Soviets are going to roll. The Soviets scored 5 hits. Jeez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like that, they smashed the German attack with powerful counter strokes. Germans are going to respond. The Panzer Corps scores another hit. The infantry score no hits. The Soviets do take a loss. So the Soviet tank army there definitely paid off, it looks like. So the Germans lost another 5. The Soviets lost one more, it looks like. So yeah, German casualties over 100,000. Soviets are about 75. All right, let's do the blitz phase now. Simple formula, just in and out, right? Pull out the understrength infantry. Well, we only have to pull out 1 infantry here at Kaluga. I'm thinking if we can send a Panzer Corps in there, we might as well, because I think we might be able to break through. Let's try to do that. Let's go ahead and send this reserve Panzer Corps over there. I think that might be the best move. I'll put in another infantry, full strength infantry unit to the north. We do have this fortress unit here on Rezhev. It is at level 2. It should be at least at level 3, I would think, to really have a good chance of sustaining the defense against the Soviet attack. Let's put just, I guess, a full strength infantry unit there. And then the main area that needs to be beefed up is defending or reinforcing Kaluga, right? That's the main area that needs to be defended. Let's go ahead and put this mech unit here. I think that might be the best spot to leave it. And then we're going to pull out this infantry unit, put all those weak units in Tula, basically to defend. And then we'll respond by dropping in 2 strong infantry in there, 2 full strength infantry. Unfortunately, one of the armored units took a hit there as well. And we pretty much don't have any reserves. We don't really have any significant reserves at the moment. Most of our infantry reserves are here in the north. Really want to protect that northern flank. But I don't have like really any infantry reserves here in the south. Let's go ahead and put this 11th Army like here, so that in case we do need to reinforce the south, it's in range. Yeah. Okay. And then we'll put the airstrike. We could either put the airstrike on Kaluga with the hopes of like scoring more hits against the Soviets, or we put the airstrike here in Mos Heisk with the hopes of breaking through. And I'm thinking we should focus on the breakthrough if we can. So let's focus on Mos Heisk. We've made a lot of good progress on Mos Heisk. Airstrikes do not score any hits. Soviets are almost at their breaking point. Soviets scored no hits. Panzer army is going to retaliate. Oh, nice. 2 hits by the Panzer army. We scored 5 hits altogether, but we just destroyed one of the Soviet armies just like that. We'll knock out that 13th. So the Soviets sustained technically 3 more hits there at Mos Heisk. And then we'll also go ahead and attack if we can. I figure let's keep attacking Kaluga as well. Might as well. Soviets have a very strong defense. They score 3 hits. 1, 2, 3. 3 hits against the Germans. Germans sustaining significant losses. Panzers are going to roll. Looks like we scored half a hit there. Followed by infantry. Okay, we did score one more hit. Very nice. Very nice. All right, we needed that hit. Cool. And that's going to wrap up this German turn. So, yeah, October 42, Germans are making headway. I'm also thinking, like, maybe we try to attack Kamensko, even though, like, these units don't have any armor. I'm thinking, like, we may be able to score 2 hits. Let's just attack Kamensko. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Soviets miss, and the Germans miss. Okay. All right, so that's that. That's going to sum up that turn. We'll now switch over to the Soviets and see how the Soviets respond. Situation is not great for the Soviets, right? Kaluga and Moshaivsk are about to fall. Thankfully, we have a strong strategic reserve right now. We have two shock armies available, which I'm really glad that I was able to put them in position. I'm going to go ahead and activate the Western HQ, and all I'm going to do is move up the shock armies. That's it. Just advance the shock armies, beefing up the positions. I don't think I'm going to pull out any units. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I actually move in the 24th as well. And then I'll go ahead and like pull out the 19th. I'm not sure where to put it. I'll probably leave it in Moscow, thinking. Right, two guard armies in Moscow would be good to build up as a reserve. But we also need to make sure that Klin is protected, right? One army alone is not really enough. So let's move the 10th army. I think we'll go ahead and actually move up this 4th army. I'm not sure where to put it because it's only at Cadre. Also, we got to be very careful with Ryazan, right? We need another army there as well. So what I'll do is actually I'm going to deploy this Western HQ to Vladimir, and I think I'm going to move up this Soviet tank army and put it in Ryazan. So it's going to be the main defense there. It's probably better on this flank, right? It's probably much better to put it on the flank. I don't want to send in too many tank armies to act as a defense when what we really need is like an operational um, what we really need is like an operational defense or operational like counteroffensive capability, right? What I'm actually gonna move this 10th Army to Klin, move the 4th Army to Kalinin, so we can establish a defense there. This tank army is probably not best there. Let's go ahead and move this 20th there. And then we don't really have any Soviet reserves, right? Like our reserves are very, very, very limited at the moment around Moscow. So that needs to be a priority for the Soviets for sure. Airborne units, I don't want to convert it to, I really don't want to convert it. I don't want to ground the paratroopers because once you do that, it's a permanent decision. You can't undo it. I'm like 90% sure that's the rule. We can look at the rule book to verify that. Which is kind of a dang shame, right? Because it'd be like nice to like undo that so that if you want to do a paratrooper operation later on, you can. But the benefit of grounding your units is that um, they basically act as elite infantry, and they have double defense defending, and they're cost effective. They're equivalent to a mech unit basically. Grounded paratroopers can no longer parachop, but they will cost drop by half. This grounding is not reversible, which is insane to me. But I guess they fundamentally changed the structure, right? And I don't want to pull out any units from over here. We got two tank armies already here in Ryazan, and it's like I need more tanks, right? I think it's unwise to move this third tank army to the front line. I'd rather keep it as some kind of reserve. So I'm thinking like maybe we move it here, right? And just try to consider using it to hit the German flank sooner rather than later, right? But we need more reserves. I mean, Ryazan doesn't have enough firepower to defend all by itself. Maybe I pull out one of these tank armies. I kind of want to leave it there just to inflict as many German casualties as we can. We're gonna move in these two armies for sure into Moshaivsk. The flank at Kalinin is good. Moscow has like no reserves whatsoever. Um, and then we have a nice defense there at Kalinin as well. We'll be able to repulse a landing pretty well, plus double defense. But it's clear to me that like the Soviets need more reserves around Moscow for sure. I think that's it. I mean, I want to complicate it more, but the point is, if the Germans do launch another blitz, on the next turn we effectively have little to no reserves available to reinforce the front line, right? I might be able to build up this guard unit. It's not ready yet. This 10th Army. In fact, maybe what I want to do is move this 10th Army into Moscow. Move this 20th Army into Klin, like so. And then we just need a little bit more units protecting Ryazan, right? Just need one more unit. Maybe temporarily I do move this guard unit there, just temporarily. Hmm. No, no, no. Let's make sure it stays where it needs to stay, which is right there. It's a decent setup, but we definitely need like another unit here. The only solution I can think of is pulling out one of these shock armies, like maybe pulling out the first shock army, bringing it to Moscow, and just accept the fact that we have to keep swapping units in and out if we want to like sustain the defense. Except the fact that we're gonna have to keep rotating units. But the idea is always have a strategic reserve available. Always have a strategic reserve available in case we need to send in reinforcements. That to me is like the most important concept. Let's move this, maybe move this army up just a little bit, put it there so that it's in range. Um, if the weather is clear, if the weather is mud, we're going to be doing just fine, right? So we do need like mud. We definitely need mud for sure to hold off the German attacks. The Germans are not going to be able to break through at Klin, but obviously this 20th Army needs time to get more repairs. Um, and I think, unfortunately, I think I will pull out the second tank army and put it there. Um, or no, maybe we'll leave the tank army there, but we'll pull out the shock army, right? Um, Now we have a decent reserve, and I think yeah, no choice but to move up this armored unit there. All right, so the setup isn't great, but we do have a strategic reserve, and that's the most important thing for the Soviets. Always have a strategic reserve available when playing as the Soviets, if you can. Unless it's like impossible, but you want to make sure you have a strategic reserve like almost always available when defending. So that's it for the Soviets. We'll move on to the next fortnight. We'll roll for weather. Oof, it's also clear weather. That's no bueno for the Soviets. Okay. Unfortunately, we may still deal with a German onslaught. That's just really unfortunate. Okay, we're gonna switch over to the British now. Before we do anything on the Eastern Front, let's see what's going on the Western Front. So yeah, that was an unfortunate loss for the British. And the main problem the British have right now is supplies, right? We don't really have that many units. Um, we just don't have that many units, right? Like we need to protect Benghazi from an amphibious invasion for sure. We need to protect Tobruk. We could lose Tobruk, right? Because we control the naval bases, but like we need just more troops, and losing an entire corps like that is very unfortunate. We could just blitz on Sirte, destroy whatever unit is at Sirte, and then just like hope that the Axis don't flank us, right? Um, yeah, I mean, if we can destroy two German units, we'll be in very good shape, right? Destroy this unit of Sirte, and then maybe destroy this unit over here, south of Misurata. Problem is that, our units are going to be out of position, and presumably the Afrika Korps can come in smashing again. So this is where like the North African fighting becomes really unstable really fast, right? Now, ideally, I can move this Palestinian unit and maybe move it to Benghazi, right? But even by road, it can't move. It can only move 6 hexes by road, and it needs 9 to get to Benghazi. The fastest way to move it is via sea, which would cost 2 supreme moves, and we don't have an HQ right now for that. So I think, unfortunately, I think the best move for the British is to simply sit and wait. It's not the wisest move, but I'm thinking if we can just wait a little bit longer and launch an amphibious invasion on Morocco, Algeria, do an Operation Torch, if we can do that, we'll be able to, um, strategically open up the front on another sector without necessarily losing the Eighth Army entirely. I would love to move up these Australian units. They would be very helpful right now. They are in range. Um, but like we can't lose Benghazi. If we lose Benghazi, our entire supply line is jeopardized right now. So they're actually arguably the most valuable unit that we have at the moment, the most valuable position. And then of course I could move up some of these other units, right? Like I could also like abandon Iraq, risk a uprising here, and if we lose Iraq, we're gonna lose the production, the oil production at Kirkuk and Basra, right? Which is gonna be no bueno. Thankfully, Persia should still be under control, and Abadan will still do well there. But we'll lose some production. I think we have a little bit of leniency in that sense. But like right now, this HQ unit it's at level 1, and I don't want to reduce it down to 0 if at all possible. I'd rather avoid that. So I think the best move is just try to build up that core again and wait until let's not do anything right now. Um, Now it is theoretically possible that the Axis can flank us, but that HQ is at level 1, so I highly doubt they can do much. They're not going to be able to launch much of a counterattack. Um, is the good news, right? So I think we could like maybe blitz on Sorte, destroy Sorte, and then fall back. But keep in mind that these HQ costs are 20 apiece, and it's like I don't think the British have enough production for that. So I'd rather preserve this 21st HQ if I can. But maybe what I should do is consider moving this Mediterranean HQ to Tobruk, then to Benghazi, so that it can actually provide air support and it can provide combat support this HQ. So we should try to move it to the front line actually, and pull it out of Alexandria. And we'll just leave this Palestinian unit there. I think that's the best plan. But yeah, there's nothing else for the Allies right now. But we should definitely start preparing to do an amphibious invasion. Um, Definitely started preparing an amphibious invasion uh, of of French North Africa as soon as possible. So that's it. We'll switch back to the Germans, and I think the Germans are going to keep attacking if we can. We've got still 4 infantry, so let's do it. I think we'll do another blitz before the weather turns really bad. I'm going to use Army Group A. I haven't used Army Group A like all summer, or I think I used it only once in those initial breakthroughs that we had around Voshilograd. We're going to blitz, and then I'm going to, yeah, just like pour in all of my infantry. Here at Kaluga, I'm going to pull out the armored core, which is under strength. Pull out this infantry. Pull out this armored core as well. I'll put it as a reserve at Laurel. And then we're going to move in 2 fresh infantry. Oh no, we'll move 1 fresh infantry. And ideally 2 fresh full strength infantry is what I'm thinking. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're only attacking with 1 Panzer Corps, not 2, which is kind of the bare minimum. But I'm thinking, if the Soviets are going to inflict heavy losses on us, I'd rather it be on infantry rather than the panzers. And then maybe next turn we can blitz. I'm going to move this panzer or infantry corps south, move this corps south. We need more corps to the north, right? We definitely need more to the north. We got another panzer corps here too, also under strength. Let's move it to Orel as well. Just kind of, it's just a nice supply. It's just a nice depot, right? To like picks up all the panzers. And then we got 4 infantry over here, but they're totally under strength. So I think they're just going to sit there and we're going to build them up. Um, that's another depot to build up infantry. But like we need probably 1 more infantry unit here, and then ideally 2 in Reshead, I'm thinking. And ideally have 1 like at full strength, if at all possible, would be the best thing. So I'll put like another infantry unit there, so that it can move up north if necessary. We got this another infantry unit here. So yeah, a lot of understrength German infantry. You can see 7 Panzer Corps or 7 German Corps are all under strength. So they barely can defend. So like they're out of the fight. I mean, they sustain heavy losses. Thankfully, we have a few others that can continue the attack. So yeah, as far as where I want to put the airstrike, I'm thinking to make up for the fact that we don't have too much armor at Kaluga, I think we'll put the airstrike in Kaluga. And then the Soviets did reinforce Moshaisks. Maybe we I don't think we're going to be able to break through, so I'm actually going to move in another infantry unit there. And then I'm going to pull out one of the armored corps, put it right there. So actually, that armored corps can actually stay over here. That's the game plan. Two and two. Just keep attacking with two infantry. And I don't think we really have. I don't think we only have. We only have one German infantry available for blitz operations, right? So we could use more infantry, and we only have one infantry corps available as a reserve. So maybe we don't blitz. Maybe we don't blitz, unfortunately. Like our infantry are just they're just exhausted, right? Maybe we actually don't blitz. It goes to show that despite having the favorable weather, what's really slowing down our progress is not even the weather, it's the fact that our units are all just under strength, right? Which is really unfortunate, right? We have one infantry, level 3 Panzer Corps. We have two Panzer Corps and one infantry. Okay, so we could probably blitz in one of the two hexes. I doubt we can attack in both. Um, I doubt we're going to be able to attack in both. I'll put this HQ here, and then I'll move Army Group North there, I think. But like all our HQs are clustered around Moscow, right? Which really means that the other sectors are very vulnerable to attack, right? That's kind of the idea. So yeah, and we have this really nice German cluster here at Ryazan, but we're not attacking. It's kind of a stalemate. Both sides have these two massive armored formations that are facing each other, but they're not actually attacking. Neither side is attacking. The Soviets could attack, and the Germans could also attack, but I don't think we're going to be able to keep up with the attrition if we do. Let's do let's see how it goes. Shock Army scores 4 hits, followed by the Soviet infantry with one extra hit. The Soviets scored 5 hits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so unfortunately, any hopes of breaking through Moshaissk on this turn is effectively gone. Germans are going to roll, and they score no hits. Damn, what a fail. Battle Kaluga, airstrikes, no hits. Soviets still got lots of double fire. They scored 2 hits. Okay, not as bad. Not as bad. We only have one Panzer Corps. We do score 2 hits with that, followed by the infantry. They also score another hit. So we do score 2 hits. Nice. So we did make progress. We did make some progress there. The Soviets lose another 2. I think the Germans lost 2 as well. Okay, so clearly the place to blitz is not Moshaissk. We probably actually need to put in some infantry there anyways, just to avoid a Soviet counteroffensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this corps into Kaluga, right? I'm going to pull out one infantry, put it to Rezhev. We're going to move the armored units into Kaluga as well. Oh, and then I guess, oh, hold on. Let's pull out, oh, actually, okay, I got it. This infantry will move in from the south. These two infantry are going to move directly west. Oh no, we only need to pull out one more. We'll move it to Rezhev, and then the last armored corps will attack from the southwest. Okay, so pretty good. Those two pulled out. Okay, I'm a little concerned about Moshaissk though, right? Like the Soviets could counterattack, and our infantry are at their breaking point, right? We need at least one more unit to reinforce that sector, and I don't have it. I don't have move this infantry unit north. Don't have actually any unit available at the moment. All I have is a Panzer Corps, which I guess is better than nothing. So let's pull out this Panzer Corps. Oh no, I can't even use it because it's out of range. Fudge. big old fudge. That's a big fudge. No more level 3 infantry, huh? None around Moscow. Very unfortunate. But Moshaïsk is vulnerable to a Soviet counteroffensive, right? The Soviets have, I mean, the shock army is at full strength. They could do some damage, and if they do, the Panzer Corps is the one that's going to take all the hits. So I'm thinking actually, this infantry unit should be the unit that actually moves into Moshaïsk, and basically deployed for defensive purposes, defensive operations. So that means that I may need to attack Kaluga with only level 3 units, which is unwise. Very unwise move to do. So maybe I don't pull out this infantry. I guess I'll pull out one infantry. This infantry can go there. We got a lot of infantry to build up for sure. Um, yeah, and we need to build a Panzer Corps. We need to build up just a frick ton of units overall. But I don't think we're going to attack on this turn. I'm pretty sure I had a reserve Panzer. Oh, I sent it in. Huh. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I think we are going to attack Kaluga. Yeah, I think we're gonna launch another attack on Kaluga, hoping to not sustain as many terrible losses as we did on the last turn. Two infantry armies in the north, one in the south, and then this Panzer army in reserve. But yeah, I guess we are gonna try to attack Kaluga still, and see if we can grind the Soviets down a bit. I'm thinking better to attack than to not attack, right? With the hopes that we just don't sustain too many losses. I have a good feeling that we won't sustain as many losses this time. We'll see. It's a bit of a gamble. It's a huge gamble for sure. Let's see. Oh, and I want more reserves, so let's leave this unit here. I think also this unit here as well. Because I'm assuming the Soviets are going to attack on this flank, so just make sure we have like some reserve corps available. And then we got an armored reserve here in the south, not bad. Orel, not the best place. They're a bit out of range, I realize. And then the weather's about to change too, so let's do it. Let's see how the Battle of Moshaïsk goes. Airstrike misses. Soviets roll. Let's see. Okay, 2 hits. Not that bad. 3 hits. Okay, could have been worse. 1, 2, 3. All right, the situation didn't change much. But we do have a lot of panzers. All right, we did score a hit there. And then infantry. All right, we did score 1 hit. Soviets can still counterattack. All right, and the Soviets are at 10. All right, that's it. That's all the Germans can do. We'll see if the Soviets counterattack or not. If I were the Soviets, I would counterattack for sure. I would try to do everything in my power to counterattack. So we'll see how it goes. That was a pretty bad turn for the Germans. 19,000 losses. I think it's the costliest outside of June 1942. It is the costliest month of the war. Now, yeah, outside of June 41, June 42, October 42 was very costly for the Germans for sure. 19,000, what is that, right? It's 22,000 times 19. It's 418,000 casualties. That's a lot. I think in the Battle of Stalingrad, the German army lost before the encirclement, right? I think that they sustained something around like 600,000 casualties. It was high. It was very high. But these battles are humongous, right? Compared to Stalingrad, these battles are big for sure. We'll switch to the Soviets. I think the Soviets were able to accomplish their objective, which is just hold the line. And if we could avoid spending HQs, the better, right? The Soviets don't have much of a reserve. They need time to build up the reserve. So this actually favors the Soviets pretty well. We're not going to counterattack right now, but we could counterattack next turn if the weather is favorable. And that's exactly what the Soviets need. They just need a counteroffensive, right? And we could very well pull it off. We have this tank army in range of Moshaik. So that was a good move. Very cool. All right. So yeah, we're not going to do anything more with the Soviets. Let's go ahead and move on to November and do the Soviet production. Germans decided not to attack. A few other things to point out. I'll get around to that in a moment. So yeah, let's do Soviet production. Production is at 57. Decent. Let's go ahead and build up 3 HQs. I'm thinking, this may be the time to counterattack. We're going to build up 3 HQs. We're now down to 27. The rest is going to be spent on building up these reserves. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's 24 builds all around Moscow. We only have 3 left. There's nothing more to build. I would like to build up more reserves, right? Like, I want to build up a grand strategic reserve, if you want to call it that. I don't know if it's necessarily grand strategy, but it is a strategic reserve that we can then use to retake all this territory, right? But I would have to build up like predominantly mech and armored units. You can see that the Soviets have lost a lot of infantry, but like I'm thinking we should build up at least these guard mech units, and then probably build up 2 infantry armies, and then also build up all the cavalry. So there's at least 8 Soviet units that we want to build up, right? And then probably build up some of these tank corps as well, like at least 3 of them. So there's like, what, 11, 12 units that I want to build up for like 43, right? If I can, try to build them up for 43. We don't have to build up the whole Soviet force pool, but if we can build up these formations, this is exactly what we'll need to like regain all this territory and actually put strategic pressure, operational pressure on the German flank here, right? Which is only defended by 1 corps per hex, right? Each corps is about 100,000 troops, and they're covering a 120-kilometer long front. So what is that? 100,000 divided by 120. That's about 833 troops per kilometer. That's actually pretty good. That's actually decent. It's only one defensive line, one defensive belt, but you've got, about, almost 1 troop per meter, which is pretty reasonable, right? If they're all, presuming they're all combat units, and they probably aren't, right? You got medics, you've got like cooks, logisticians, and so forth. So maybe about a third, 2/3 of this. Still, I mean, you've got like, you know, maybe like 1 soldier for every 2 meters or so. That's a relatively good defensive depth. I mean, it's functional, but it's not going to hold off an armored breakthrough, right? The odds of holding off an armored breakthrough are relatively low. In other words, if we can build up, if we can just build up these Soviet reserves, but they're expensive, right? Also build up the cavalry. Oh, we also got another guard army here too. So like, let's do the math on that. That's 6, 7, that's 11 units that I want to build on, and how much is that going to cost? We probably should do the math on that. This is, each costs 8 apiece. So that's going to be 24. This is 6 apiece. That's 18. 18 plus 24 is like 42, right? 42 plus the cavalry is another 12. That's 54 plus 3 armies. That's 66, right? So basically, we need a full month without building up any HQs, without building up any operational reserves anywhere else along the front to build up this formation. So I'm thinking it might take a couple months to do it, but we can do it. It is possible. But for now, I think we're going to try to focus on an immediate counteroffensive at Ryazan. And that's the game plan. I don't have any other infantry reserves to build. Unfortunately, I don't have much. So the the Soviet situation is very, very, very weak still, right? It's very, very weak overall. But we are making progress. That's it for Soviet production. We'll now switch over to, I guess, German production. We'll do that next. Very strong on the Eastern Front. We didn't attack Murmansk. We could have. I forgot. Let's go ahead and build up these HQs. 1, 2, 3. Verse 50 on HQs. That leaves us with 42 to build up ground units. Let's build up this fortress unit. So now we're down to 32. We can only build up 8 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. So in other words, I don't think the Germans are going to attack. I don't think we're going to launch too many operations in November. I think we're going to stop the operations a little bit and just give time to replace our casualties as we can. So that's all we got for the Germans on the Eastern Front. Mediterranean Front production is strong at 30, right? Yeah, 30 production, so that's 6 dice rolls. Ooh, very good rolls. That's 12, 17. 17 plus, what is that? Another 20 is 27 builds. That's excellent. Build up the HQ. That's 10. Build up this one. That's 15. That leaves us with 12. We can go ahead and build up this infantry units. Very nice. And then we're also going to build up this living units and build it up to level 1. We could also try to build up this unit over here, but I guess not. And we have 2 more left over that we're just going to toss out. We're not going to spend them. The Western Front production is a whole nother story. It's in really bad shape. Go ahead and build up OKW. Yeah, we only have 12 production points right now in the West. I'm thinking let's just pass the production to December. Let's just pass it on to December because yeah, unfortunately, there's not much more that we can do, you know. Unfortunately, there's not much more that we can do. Um, I mean, we could build up 1 HQ and then attack, but I'm thinking let's not do that because we got to be as economical as we can. We also have more units to build up. So like 2 militia units, I'll put these here. Presumably they're going to move down to southern France. And then we got 2 more units here. Let's go ahead and put this fortress unit in Paris so that it can make its way to Brest. And then I guess I'll put this paratrooper unit in Belgrade in case we see Tito's forces activated, right? Which we probably will. Okay. So yeah, the situation is just uh, super messy. Let's read up on some of Tito's rules. Um, yeah, I wonder if Tito can take Sofia, right? Which is the capital of Bulgaria. I think that's in section 16. I don't know if Tito has zone of control, right? Tito functions as allied mountain units subject to all known rules except for the following special abilities within Yugoslavia only. Tito is immune to supply attrition, but if but if Tito is immune to supply attrition, but if unsupplied, it still has no zone of control and cannot build as usual. All right, so I'm assuming the Tito unit will be automatically out of supplies, right? Even when deployed, Tito can disengage/retreat into unoccupied mountain hexes regardless of zone of control. Yeah. So the question is, when it's activated, the Tito unit arrives unsupplied at 1 CV. Okay. Meaning that no, Sofia will not be taken by Tito. I don't think it can operate outside of Yugoslavia too, right? Um, it arrives unsupplied, no zone control as a normal allied Soviet unit, subject to all normal rules. The only question I have is can it operate outside of the country? That's the only question I have. Um, Revolt. A resistant army appears in home territory, and it's restricted to it. Okay, there you go. So yeah, it cannot operate outside of Yugoslavia, I don't think. All right. So yeah, unfortunately, nothing really eventful over here on the Western Front. Um, Total stalemate, and unfortunately, the Germans do need like much more production on the West if we want to like make gains, especially against this British position. But it's hard for the British to break out, right? Because if they do break out, their entire supply line is vulnerable. You can basically see a German flanking maneuver and attack the supply situation. It's hard for the British to defend if they decide to break out. So for now, I mean, if they got to hold out until Operation Overlord, so be it. Like they can hold out until Overlord, and if they do, well, what happens, right? Basically, it's going to be very useful in the later stages of a you know European Western Front campaign. But for now, it's a stalemate. But I think the idea is that it's at least holding down German units, right? But yeah, the German situation in Libya is looking pretty good. So that's nice. We'll now switch over to the Allies and do their production. The British are going to have 6 die rolls on Mediterranean front. We have 4 plus what is that? 14? 11 plus 4, 14. We have 18 production, just enough to build up this Western Desert Force from scratch. It costs 18 to build in the Mediterranean front, and that's exactly what we need to do. Nothing else. Then we have what, 22 on the Western front, right? 22 production. So let's go ahead and just focus on building up HQs, I guess. I think I'm actually going to build up this Canadian unit and then build up this HQ. We have 6 production points that I think I'm going to toss out. The idea I have is that I'm going to pull out this airborne corps and put the Canadian corps in there instead. Because the airborne corps is more expensive, it's also can do the special paratrooper operations. So I'd rather have it as a reserve. If necessary, we can send it in again. And then also we get reinforcements for the Allies in November. We get the 2nd American Corps. We also get another HQ. And then we also get this 1st American Army Group HQ. We're going to put that in Gibraltar as well. We are now in position to do an invasion of whatchamacallit, do an invasion of Morocco, um, an invasion of French North Africa. So that's really good. Something else too that I was going to do, I was going to also indicate that Yugoslavia has been exploited pretty much since the Second Front opened up. Right, this was Yugoslavia fell back in it fell back in summer or actually yeah it fell back in like winter summer of 41. So by June 42 it was available again. Yugoslavia was exploited. That means we could show up with Tito's partisan army, and now that it's the Second Front, it's going to be at full strength. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to roll for weather now on both fronts, and it's clear weather on both fronts, or at least clear weather on the Western Front, and it's going to be snow weather on the Eastern Front. Very interesting. So the Soviets can counterattack. Let's do the British operations first. What we're going to do is activate this Supreme HQ. I'm going to pull out this airborne corps via the port, and then we're going to move in this Canadian corps via the Mulberry beachhead. So full strike defense there. That's 2 supreme moves. Then the 3rd supreme move is I'm going to move this 5th army to Dover, and then I got 1 more supreme move left. I don't know what to do, right? But maybe we move this. Yeah, we move this corps from whatchamacallit, from London to Dover as well. And that's it. That's 4 supreme moves. But the game plan is that now this army group, this Fifth Corps, can participate in the torch landings. Now we could try to do an Operation Torch right now, and I'm thinking we do that. Let's try to land in Algeria. Maybe I send two corps into Algiers, right? I send these two corps straight into Algiers. I ideally put Morocco out of supplies so that on the following turn we can do an amphibious invasion on Morocco. I'm assuming due to weather, um, we got to read up on amphibious invasions, right? How that works, with how weather works. Um, Paratrooper, sea operations, sea supply, sea movements. Okay, no, we're not looking at sea movements. Sea invasions. Um, what does weather? Sea assaults. Sea evacuations. Invasion dispersal. Beachheads. Mulberries. Sea interdiction. But I'm not seeing anything on weather. Repulse. I'm pretty sure there's something that says that, like, you can't do it during mud, right? So that's the only gamble. All right, here it says sea invasions cannot be made into mountain, marsh, or shoal hexes. Mud weather does not affect sea. Oh, it does not affect sea invasion. Interesting. Mud weather does not affect sea invasions. Very nice. But I think storms do, right? I don't think you can actually do an invasion if there's storms. Um, yeah. So there's another rule on storms that I want to verify. Invasion movements, of opposed invasions, sea assaults. Something having to do with storms. Long range invasions, sea evacuations, beachhead, the mulberries, sea interdiction. Okay, nothing. I'm not seeing anything on the storms. The storms are obviously really important. And there is a possibility that we do experience storms on the next turn if it's mud, right? So it is somewhere here, um, that I have to like look for. So one moment, I'm gonna have to like, I'm trying to look for it as smoothly, as efficiently as I can. Mulberry shore bombardment, sea interdiction, sea supplies. There's a lot of rules, right? Seaway, naval supremacy, sea invasions, sea assault. It may be in another section too that I can look at, which talks about like weather. I could also go to like the what's it called? The index? Is this the index? And see if I can find anything on storms. Supply status, surprise attack, surrender, storms. All right, here it is. Sea storms, 12.5. Sea storms isn't okay. So it was in a whole another section. Let's see. I'm gonna go to the table of contents. 12.5. All right. So sea storms, page 33. Check it out. 12 point. Okay, so yeah, sea storms. So no sea invasion movement is possible through affected seas. So no movement, regardless of the location, right? Because all of North Africa is technically clear weather. It's dry weather. Um, but like it says, invasion HQ command range for combat support is still traceable. Beachheads are also affected as well. So in other words, if we do decide to invade um, North Africa, right? we do decide to invade North Africa, right, on the next turn, it's possible that the Atlantic Ocean is subject to storms. That's if you roll a 5 or a 9 in the Atlantic Basin. And if that happens, we will not be able to launch an amphibious invasion from Britain to, say, Morocco, which is going to delay, of course, everything. Um, but like, there's a relatively high chance that the landings fail at Morocco, right? There's a very high chance that the French can repulse. They can repulse on a roll of one. I guess it's a 1 in 6 chance of a repulse, which is actually relatively low. And then there is a chance that the French do surrender at Casablanca, which would be really nice. So I'm thinking, regardless, I mean, regardless of whether our formations were out of position, right? You know, this fifth corps was out of position, so we're gonna have to wait on next turn, regardless. Um, so I'm thinking, let's do Operation Torch now. Let's not wait on that. And I think, yeah, let's do it now. Now that we have no weather problem, let's do that. We're gonna do it in 2 different stages, right? Stage 1, take Algiers. Stage 2, take Morocco. That's the game plan. The Blitz invasion. So I'm gonna send the Sixth Corps into Algiers first, and then I think we'll do a Blitz phase on Algiers too. If the landing fails, we're gonna send in another wave. If we can take Algiers, you know, that's it. If we can take Algiers, the whole French situation is going to effectively collapse. So I'm thinking let's just double down on Algiers. There's no need to land in Iran, although I guess that's a nice alternative, right? Alternative landing in Iran. Maybe we do land in Iran. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Yeah, we'll do 2 different invasion sites, one in Algiers, the other in Iran, and let's see how it goes. Um, or we just blitz on Iran. I'm thinking, yeah, we're gonna blitz on Iran. What am I saying? I feel pretty confident. Now, if we have 2 failed repulses on Algiers, that's going to be so embarrassing, right? You know, two invasions and both get repulsed. I mean, what a dang shame. So if we do land on Iran, it's a guaranteed landing. So yeah, I guess we'll go for Iran instead. All right, there's that. Any other operations I want to do for the British? Not really. We're going to wait a little bit longer before we attack the Axis line here. Um, but like maybe we chase them down. This, you know, if this may be the time to strike, we can blitz on Sirte, and then maybe blitz on over here, and then it's going to be hard for the Germans to counterattack. I can't say for certain if it will or won't. I'd rather wait and preserve the British Eighth Army if at all possible. All right, so that's the British and American operations. Let's go ahead and start it. We are declaring war on French North Africa. So French North Africa is going to be activated as a pro-Axis, you know, basically a minor power. So we're going to start deploying the French forces, put these in southern France, with officially Axis, and put them all along these ports, all these French militia units, Tunisia, Algiers, and then we got this African unit way over here. I don't know what it's doing, but it should be placed in West Africa, right? That's the idea. Yeah. Okay, so let's start, and then we'll do Soviet operations next. Landing in Algiers. Let's see how it goes. The French fail to repulse. We got to do acclimatization, meaning that this unit's going to be reduced by 2. It rolls a 2, which is what was needed to get this unit to surrender, which it does. So we successfully take that. Super awesome. All right, and then now we'll do the blitz phase for the invasion, and we're going to send this other corps to Iran. We'll do the battle here. The French do not repulse. They actually automatically surrender because they're militia. Acclimatization occurs. So there you go. Technically not American casualties, right? But it's like just logistics, basically. So that's it. Successful landings. We can also roll to see if France surrenders, right? We got to count how many units have been lost. Um, and then count how many ports are under our control. And it has to be less than or equal to. The French lost 2 units, and they lost 2 ports, so we needed to roll a 4 or less, and it was not. So basically, uh, Fishy France has not yet surrendered. We'll check the supply situation for Casablanca. We'll roll 3 dice. There needs to be a supply run that needs to make it through the Atlantic Ocean and basically arrive at the Bay of Biscay, where then it can be supplied via France. So we got to roll 3 dice, and no, it totally gets repulsed. You can see the table here. Basically, sea supply, 1 or 3 for naval priorities are repulsed. Similar to river repulses, basically they get repulsed there. So this unit is going to be out of supplies. So yeah, it should fall relatively quickly as well. So there's that, and then and I guess we'll do another supply run for this unit in West Africa, also out of supplies too. All right, that's that. And then one last thing I'll do with the allies, since we have whatchamacallit, we have Tito available during the ally production phase. We're going to activate Tito's Yugoslavian revolt. We can do it. I'm going to play it in the mountain area here, and what it does, it's out of supplies. So, but it's cutting off the supply path from basically Greece, directly from Greece to Belgrade, and that's exactly what we need, right? So it's going to basically be a nuisance for the access in Yugoslavia. That's what we want to see. But it is unsupplied, so it doesn't have any zone of control, which is surprising. Okay, now we'll switch over to the Soviets and do Soviet operations. The Soviets are going to launch a counteroffensive, and we're going to do a full-out counteroffensive. It's very similar to what we saw in 1941 historically, but this time it's in 42. But I'm going to blitz with this Western HQ. And the idea is we're going to counterattack the main German cluster at Moshaizk, given the losses they had sustained. It's a very simple process. I'm going to pull out 1 infantry unit. I'm going to I'm going to send the tank army straight in. I'm not going to hold back. And I can only do 2 in and 2 out, right? Or 1 in, 1 out. 1 out. This is the contested hex, so it can't withdraw. And then ideally I would send its 10th Corps in as well. But the problem is that I can't send. The problem is that I can't send more units further in. So that's it. I mean, we can't really counterattack with much else. We do have this reserve infantry corps, very valuable units. I'm thinking probably should reinforce Kaluga if I can. Yeah, let's try to reinforce Kaluga. Now I should have another shock army somewhere, right? I got 1 here in Kaluga, another in Moshaizk. Oh, I got 1 more in Moscow, and then 1 more down here, right? In Ryazan, or Ryazk, I think it's called. Yeah, Ryazk. So all the shock armies are pretty busy at the moment. These 2 armies, this tank army and this shock army should be pulled out, but I'm waiting for this mech corps to be built up. And then we also got to be aware of the fact that the Germans can do a river assault across this winter line here in the south. So I guess I'll move the shock army further south there. But it's probably better to leave it in Moscow. But yeah, we are gonna see any other operations that I want to do. Yeah, there is more I want to do for sure. I'm thinking like move down 1 of these infantry units as a reserve. We could even try to move up like a bunch of Soviet units and have them cluster around this sector here, right? But I think I'm going to wait 1 more turn before I do that. Yeah. And actually, you know what? I'm going to move this infantry to the south, I think. Interesting. It's an interesting setup. No need to activate Stavka, not yet. Primarily because a lot of other units are just out of supplies, right? Not out of supplies, but they are just under strength totally, and we don't have like I said, we got to build up this massive reserve of Soviet units, and we just don't have the production right now to do it. At least not immediately, not on this turn. But we can blitz on Moshaizsk. It is a very temporary offensive. But I'm thinking like, let's do that. Let's go ahead and attack. Let's not wait. Let's go ahead and attack if we can. Okay. I'm actually gonna pull out this army. I'm not gonna send it in just yet. All right, so let's do it. We're gonna attack with a tank army and a shock army, both at full strength on Moshaizsk, and see how this battle goes. We also have air support. It is single fire, unfortunately, but I'm thinking let's attack now before the Germans send any reinforcements. So let's see how it goes. Airstrike misses. The Panzers are going to roll defensively. They do score some very nice hits. They scored 3 hits against the Soviets. 1, 2, 3. So we do sustain some significant losses, it actually looks like. 3 losses for the Soviets. 75,000 troops while attacking. And then let's now retaliate, right? We got some double fires here. We scored no hits against the Germans. So the operation was a failure. And we're blitzing? Jeez. Pretty unnecessary if you ask me. All right, so what's the game plan here? The counterattack totally failed, unfortunately. I'm gonna reinforce this 10th Army into Kaluga. 31st can move up over here. I'll pull out the 24th. I guess I'll leave the tank army in there, I'm thinking. Oh, actually, hold on. No, let's pull out the 18th, actually. So we got a reasonable defense, but our tank armies are fully committed to the front line, which is probably not the best setup, right? It's not ideal. It is winter, so the chances of Germany attacking Klin are pretty low. But like we obviously we need like stronger reserves, right? Let's move this 18th. I guess we'll bring it to Moscow. Or and I'll probably put it there. Yeah. So yeah, the setup isn't ideal. I'm also thinking about pulling out the second shock army. I might pull it out and give it time to build up. So we can keep building up more reserves. But most heists is looking very good. 1 unit in, and then we did 1 unit out, right? Pretty good. And then yeah, deactivate the Western HQ, and then that's it. Static defense, pretty much for the rest of this winter. We still have Stavka, so if I need to do some rotations, I can. But we definitely need like to build up the reserves, right? Keep building them up as much as we can. All right, that's it for the Soviets. Unfortunately, a failed operation there. We'll switch over to the Germans now. The Allies landed in the west. No bueno. Vichy France hasn't surrendered yet, so that's good. Buys us a little bit of time. But it's clear that maybe we do retreat the Africa Corps completely. The best thing to do would be a strategic move. We can move this Italian army, for example, and move it all the way to Tunis. Maybe we abandon Tripoli, I'm thinking, and fall back to Tunisia. And basically, like we saw historically, set up a defense in northern Tunisia. It's better than Tripoli because if we lose Tripoli, we're kind of in this bottleneck. So maybe it's time that we retreat. Thinking the British strategically won the position in the sense that we failed to one, two, three. It's going to take time also for our units to advance, right? I'm going to go ahead and activate this Italian Theater HQ. We're going to move this Italian army as a supreme move. Oh, what? You know what? It can't move that much. It can't move that well, actually. It can go 1, 2. It can move 4 because it has to march. Dang nabbit. Okay. No, you know what? We'll get this unit to march, fall back to Tripoli, and then I think what I'll do is maybe move the Africa Corps. I think it's the only one that's in position to make its way all the way to Tunis right now. Right? So these are two operational moves. Then I can deactivate this German HQ, and it can move over here. And then everything is out of position, right? We're going to need to move these two units via sea to Tunis. And then the Africa Corps is the only one that can actually make its way to Tunis at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. That's the supreme move that we're doing. There's no other moves that we can do. So technically, yeah, Tunis is very vulnerable. Tunis could still surrender on the next turn. But at least we have one unit that's in range. So you know what? Actually, no. I'm gonna cancel. I'm not gonna cancel. I'm not gonna activate that HQ. Everything that I did was with the Africa Corps. Oh, so that means this unit too can go 1, 2, 3 like that. So yeah, it's moving, and then this HQ is moving up. It's just not a great. It's just not a great setup. Um, Also keep in mind that we want this Africa Corps. It wants to be in at least a minor port in order to be built up at 10 production points. If we lose Tunis, we're not going to be able to build it up, right? Oh, I guess it's in rail supply. No, no, no. It needs to be yeah, what the heck? Right, there's road supply, then there's sea supply, and then there's rail supply. Hmm. I don't know. I don't know if technically this unit is in rail supply or sea supply from Sfax. I'm assuming it's in rail supply through a port. If it's only in sea supply, yeah. What's the difference between rail supply and sea supply? I'm not sure. Um, Now I know that over here it's either road supply or sea supply. There is no rail supply. If I look at the player aid table, right, it kind of tells you +5 in sea supplies, +10 in road supplies. Oh, +10 in beachhead supply too. And then I think rail supply is just like neutral. I mean, technically all these units are in sea supplies because the supplies is coming via sea. Oh my gosh. I may have been miscalculating the production cost of all these units. I think it says if I read the Mediterranean front rules, I think if it's next to a port, it's not technically in sea supplies. Pretty sure that's how it works. So I gotta find that. Let me find that rule real quick. This is Northern Front. Gotta read up Mediterranean Front rules. Um, it may not be under Mediterranean Front. It may be MF Building. It may actually have to be with HQ production. Yeah, it may have nothing to do with the Mediterranean Front. Let's look at production costs. Supreme moves, movements, hex control, supplies. All right, here we go. CD production, basic production, transferring, receiving, HQ costs. There we go. HQs and CD supplies cost +5 unless they are in or adjacent to a friendly major port or in a minor port. Yeah, so in other words, these units are in C supplies unless they're next to the port. This HQ needs to be in SPAC itself if it wants to be. So I'm thinking we'll just deactivate and leave it right here. Next turn, I can move these two units via C to Tunis, presuming that Tunis is still axis controlled, which it might not be. This Africa Corps is moving as fast as they can. So you know what? I think what I'll do is I am going to activate this HQ. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want this Africa Corps to be in range. Yeah, we are going to activate this HQ. I want this Africa Corps to be in range. 3, 4, 5, 6. I want it to be in range of Tunis. That's the idea. I guess we can leave it there. And it needs to arrive at Tunis as soon as possible, right? This is still the first fortnight. It may surrender. And then I guess on the next turn, I'm going to have to use this Africa Corps HQ again, activate it one more time, and then have it make its way to Tunis. Yeah, that's the game plan. All right, so it's a decent plan, but we are basically pulling out of Tripoli. We're going to abandon Tripoli, transfer our resources to Tunisia, hold out for Tunisia as long as we can, and then fall back to the Italian mainland. That's the game plan. And we have these militia units that are going to buy us a little bit of time before the British pursue and break through, right? So that's the plan. All right, decent plan. Western Front, nothing on the Western Front. HQ is still under strength. There's nothing we can do. Now let's transfer to the Allies. Next fortnight, let's roll for weather. All right, it is mud on the Eastern Front, but it's still clear weather on the Western Front. All right, very nice. Meaning we can now do another Bliss invasion with Army Group E, and we're going to move this 5th Corps, and we're going to have it attack Casablanca, like so. And with that, that's it. It's going to be a long-range invasion, so it's moving across 2 sea bases. So it's going to go down to 0, and then we'll basically deactivate the HQ. Nothing else for the Allies in the West. Everything seems to be good. We have just enough of a defense in case the Germans do decide to invade Britain. We can protect London, we can protect Portsmouth, and we got a few reserves. We can also always transfer these units elsewhere. And so let's see, the invasion of Casablanca should be relatively easy. Oh yeah, this unit was out of supplies. We did do the supply check on these units. Oh my gosh, you know what? Vichy France may have surrendered. Come to think of it, I think Vichy France may have surrendered. I forgot to do the supply check. Huh. Those 2 units, well, one of those units disappeared. So it would have been loss of 3 units. Okay, it would have been lost to 3 units and 2 ports. No, it did not surrender, actually. But that unit was going to be a cadre, so it surrenders immediately. And we do the acclimatization. We've taken Casablanca, which is the capital of Morocco. Taken Algiers, the capital of Algeria. So technically, Morocco and Algeria are all under Allied control. So like, I don't know. There's no allied units here yet, but like basically the western Tunisia is totally vulnerable to a allied pursuit. We could activate the theater HQ to do more moves, right? We can move one more unit forward, but I'm thinking let's wait, build it up at full strength so that it's operating at full efficiency as much as possible. But we've secured a clear supply path through Morocco and Algeria. That's a huge accomplishment. The torch landings were a total success. And I think what I'll do now, I could blitz with this HQ, and I think maybe we do. We try to blitz and take Sirte and Misurata as fast as we can. Might as well see how that goes. We're gonna blitz and just try to gain as much ground as we can. Armored and mech go on the flanks, and we got air support, double fire, so it should be easy wins, especially if the Axis are withdrawing. So let's see how it goes. Airstrikes miss. Germans roll. They also miss. Armor with triple fire scores one hit. Mech scored the other hit. This unit is gone. This unit surrenders. And then we can do Axis casualties. There's 3 on the Western Front. It's about 20,000 troops lost there. All right, so that's the blitz phase, or the initial phase. Now the blitz phase. We now pursue, and we just keep attacking. 2 armored units hit the flanks. Infantry move forward, still in command range. We'll put the airstrike marker on Misurata. And I don't think I have to worry about the Germans flanking us. I'm pretty sure we don't. Um, but maybe the wiser thing to do is just leave this 10th Corps on the flank, I think. Nah, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think the Germans are going to be able to counterattack or flank us. Um, not with a level 1 production. Not with a level 1 HQ. Alright, so airstrike misses, infantry roll, they miss, armor rolls misses, but the mech score the hits we need. I'm not sure how large the Italian units are, right? But if we look at the Operation Compass, I mean, I think the Italian strength is about 150,000 troops. That's going to also include the Italian 10th Army. That's the Italian 10th Army. Plus, I would assume like 2 militia units, right? Presumably they're all at full strength. So that might be like 3 times 2 plus, I guess it would be 5, right? 150,000 divided by, what is that, like 11? And I count about 13,000 troops per step, 14,000. So just now the Italians lost what would likely be about 28,000 troops there as well. So the Axis lost about 60,000 troops just now, but they were militia units. But the road to Tripoli is now clear, basically. So not a bad win for the British there. I'm not going to send any reinforcements because this HQ is under strength, but we did make progress. Okay. We'll now switch over to the Germans since it's mud on the Eastern Front. And what's the game plan for the German army, right? Nothing. Unfortunately, oh, we didn't check. We didn't check to see if. Hold on. We didn't check to see if. Go back to the Allies. If Vichy France surrendered, right? This time, I think they probably will surrender. The Allies control 3 ports, plus, um, the loss of 7 units. It's guaranteed that Vichy France surrenders, actually. And yeah, Vichy France is going to surrender on this turn. So we're going to eliminate the remaining Vichy French units. So Vichy France is totally surrendered, right? Now we can switch to the Axis. Okay, so it's pretty clear that we have no choice. We have no choice but to, oh my gosh, this is actually a very vulnerable situation for the Germans. I should have moved this HQ to Tunis, and I didn't. I could have moved it to Tunis if I was gonna activate it. That was dumb. All right, so oh, very bad situation right now. Okay, I think I need to activate this Africa core. It's still Axis controlled, which is the good news, but presumably the Allies can actually set up a unit that way. All right, we're gonna move that to Tunis. And the problem is that the Allies could, in theory, like surround Tripoli, and if they surround Tripoli and they contest Tripoli, we're not going to be able to withdraw our units. This is not a great situation for the Germans. A little bit preemptive. I could have moved this HQ to Tunis. I should have done that. Totally forgot. All right, so what we'll do is, I think we're just going to move this unit 1, 2, 3 like that to Sfax. I don't know if the Allies can, um, if the Allies can deploy that militia units or like that resistant revolt unit rather in Tunis or not. Gonna have to read the rules. But it's about revolts, right? Defeats. No, we're looking for revolt. Okay, Allies only. A resistant army shows up. But what about Vichy France? Once exploited, France, Greece, and Norway can revolt. If the Axis betray Vichy, Vichy can revolt at any time. The resistant army shows up. Tito, we're not talking about Tito. Right, I'm not seeing anything. Oh yeah, it can show up in any national hex not containing a German unit or zone of control. Huh. So meaning that it can show up in Tunis. If we lose Tunis, we're gonna be in deep trouble. Okay. This is not a great. This is not a great. This is not a great setup at all for the Germans. So I'm thinking. Oh whoa, the German units literally disappeared. What the heck? Hold on. Right. So the problem I see right now with our setup is that I think this HQ was there, right? Or was it here? I don't remember. I think it was here. The problem I see is that, we may have to abandon, like, we need more Supreme HQs, right? And right now, OKW is at level 1, which is no bueno. We used it in that offensive operation, and we didn't build up production to build it up again. But I think the easiest thing to do is move the Africa Corps to Tunis. That's the easiest thing to do. Deploy this HQ forward, deactivate it, and then move it to Tunis like so. The only problem is that we leave behind this army cluster in Tripoli, and in theory, the British can attack Tripoli and also flank it both. And if they do that, right, it means that that Tripoli will be in basically under siege supply, and if that happens, it's almost impossible for us to withdraw these units. So this is a very bad situation. But like we need Tunis. We can't lose Tunis, right? The only thing I can think about doing is activating OKW, which is a really bad idea because it's only a level 1, and then just moving one unit, this armored core, and like move it to Biserte basically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or move it to Tripoli or something like that. It's the only thing I'm thinking, and then we'll leave behind this 10th Italian Army, which I hope I can pull back um, on the following turn with a supreme move, right? But at least we've taken Tunis, so that's good. Or maybe we like have it fall back to Catania and just like let's not leave it in defending Tunisia. Let's just have it like evacuate if we can, right? Like what if instead of pulling it back to Tripoli, we just move it to Catania instead? It's a free move to the mainland, and except the fact that the 10th Italian Army is all but destroyed at the present moment, and is almost a guarantee that it's going to be out of supplies on the next turn, right? Like we won't be able to save it. We might be able to move it to Tunis actually, still on the next turn, but it's going to cost another supreme move, which I don't think we can really afford. So yeah, the whole situation is just pretty abysmal. The question is, do we just fall back to Sicily, or do we, or maybe what I could do is leave it on the flank. Hmm, I don't know. Ugh. Or we could also try to move it back to Tunis, right? If we move it back to Tunis, it's not bad. But the 10th, it's fair to say the 10th Army is gone. It's going to be defeated. And there's pretty much nothing we can do to save it, which is a dang shame because I wanted it to fall back to Tunis, and it's like we weren't able to withdraw in time. Um, we could have left it like maybe in Homs, maybe buy us a little bit more time. Who knows? But I think North Africa is basically fallen at this point, and it's just now a matter of trying to defend the mainland. So I think this is the best move right now, especially since our HQ is at level 0 now. We need to wait 3 months to basically not spend it. Um, so I'd rather just like try to um, conserve our production and focus on Western Front production. I think that's the game plan. If we go to the Eastern Front, it is mud. Um, I did we do a German? We never did the German. We never did a German response on the winter. My bad. We never actually responded uh, with the Germans for the winter. But I'm thinking what we'll do is just act. This is the winter turn. It is going to be disrupted. So 4 supreme moves. All I want to do is 2 in and 2 out, right? Put 2 infantry units in, and well, what I'll do is pull back this infantry, pull this infantry unit in there, pull back an armored units. Well, ideally pull back both armored units, right? No, I guess I'll just swap out those 2 units. Um, and then I guess I'll swap out, yeah, these 2 units like so. We need more infantry for sure. There's no need to send in that infantry, I don't think. Okay, it's not the best setup, but it's okay. It should get the job done. It's 4 supreme moves, nothing else on the Eastern Front. Uh, Deactivate OKW, and then we'll now move it by rail back to Warsaw. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like that. Very nice. Okay. And then that's it. And then the mud turn, I think we'll pass. There's no need to do any more operations. But we need to very much build up our infantry over here and our armor as well. A lot of weak armored units too. They need to be built up. That's it. And then the Western Front is not looking great. We may even need to transfer OKH to the Western Front. I'm thinking. Yeah, we can use OKH to actually command Western Front units. We may have to do that. Um, but it's going to operate at. No, this is a flex point, so we can command the Western Front, and we have to do that. We have to use OKH to command the Western Front. Basically, in order to preserve this strategic situation, this desperate strategic situation that we're dealing with. All right, so that's it. We'll now switch over to the Soviets. Don't think the Soviets are going to do anything this turn. Don't have the HQs for anything really, so we'll pass to the Soviets. And then we'll go ahead and start Soviet production now that we're in December. Soviet production is going to go up by 8. It's at 65 now. And the idea is to build, right? Build up this HQ. Maybe build up this HQ as well. That's 20 builds, 20 production points. I'm thinking try to build up that reserve if we can. Also build up the reserves around Moscow. They take priority, right? They seem to take priority. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So we've done 47 builds so far. That leaves us with 18 production points left for this turn. I think it's pretty clear that we want to build up these formations, start building up these formations over here. Let's build up, let's see, what do I want to build up? I guess build up these 2 cavalry, this armored army here. We'll put it inside a Tov. And then the 2 cavalry, 1 cavalry inside a Tov, another one there, and then the third one will come from Astrakhan, right? Start building up the cavalry at least. I would rather build up the mech, but like I said, the main focus needs to be building up this cluster here. And I want this cluster to be available kind of around this sector over here for offensive operations. But yeah, Vichy France surrendered, right? We can shift these French units around. We'll now do German production. I think it's fair to say that right now I'm going to cancel all Mediterranean front production. Now I could try to like build up this HQ by 1. It will suffer siege supplies, but it might give this 10th Army a little bit of time to pull out, maybe, assuming that assuming the British don't pursue, which they probably will. And then this African unit in Tunisia could also probably be built up, right? Not a bad idea. And then anything else that we would want to build up? Not really. I mean, we can only build up reinforcements in Tripoli anyways. So with like 6 dice, I'm expecting, yeah, maybe about 18 production. It will be just enough to build up the 2 HQs. Or I can cancel that production and just try to transfer everything. Try to transfer everything to the whatchamacallit, to the Western Front. What I think I might do, the Germans do gain 5 production points, so 5 more for the Western Front. That's 17. I'm thinking about maybe canceling 15 production from the Mediterranean front. Give the Western Front another 15. That's 10 plus 5. Just another 10. 30, so 32 on the Western Front. It went up by 20 production points, yeah. Plus we have 12 saved over, so we have a lot of production for the Western Front, and we still have just enough for the Mediterranean Front. A little bit less, but again, I'm just trying to buy as much time as I can. I'm thinking like, yeah, let's build up this HQ, see if I can evacuate it, if at all possible. It would be nice if I can. Or maybe use it to evacuate the 10th Army, bring the 10th Army to Tunis, and have our final stance in Tunis. It's going to buy us more time, and that's what we need right now. So let's do that. Let's roll 3 dice. We get 12 production points, just enough to build up both units, like so. So that's nice. That's a very good production there. And then with now 32 plus 12, that puts us at 44 in the Western Front. Build up OKW. Now we're down to 34. We can build up a frick ton of units, right? Um, we also gotta like transfer units to Marcel, right? So let's do that. Let's build up these two units. Um, we were at 44, now we're down to 34. Now we're down to 28. Let's build up these two armored units. Um, now we're down to, I think we're down to 12 now. Maybe I'll cancel this armored build. So now we're down to 20. Go ahead and build up this HQ. Now we're down to 10. And then let's build up these two infantry here. Or you know what? Hold on. So it was 44 minus 16 is 28, right? And then I built up one armored unit. That leaves us with 20. I guess I'll cancel this HQ build. And well, build instead. We've got a lot of units to build up. Paratrooper units, infantry units. Let's build up this 43rd infantry unit. Put her to Amsterdam. That's going to cost 6. Now we're down to 14. We can also build up another armored units, right? We are going to receive the SS Panzer Corps in February. We can use that as part of the counteroffensive. But we need more infantry. So let's also deploy these units. I'm going to put Army Group C, I think, in Belgorod. Right? Maybe put this, I guess this infantry unit in Sofia. Right? So I guess we're down to 14. Let's build up this paratrooper unit, another militia, and then try to build up one more militia. I guess this one. So now we're down to 8. And with that remaining 8, I'm thinking, what do we want to build? Probably the armored core, I would think. Yeah. Let's try to build up, I guess, this Panzer Corps here with 8, or maybe build up 2 infantry? Question mark. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the best thing to build is. Or, you know what, maybe we'll build up these 2 infantry over here. Or maybe not. No, let's build up this armored core. Like so. Alright, so we got an infantry, 2 armored core, plus a mech core, plus 3 infantry in reserve. We have enough infantry, I think. If we keep up the production, we'll have enough production to counterattack Ostend, which is the game plan. All right, that's it. Eastern Front production is 92. Let's go ahead and do production there. Build up all the HQs. That's 30. We're now down to 62. Build up this Fortress HQ over here. Now we're down to 52. That means we can build up 13 ground units, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, just like that. Nice production, building up our units pretty well. And I think the idea is that we can continue our offensive operations against Moscow if necessary. And now we're going to have to use OKH. We don't really need OKH on the Eastern Front, right? Like, you know, not too many like strategic moves necessary, but we desperately need to do operations to move units on the Western Front. We need to occupy Marseille before the Allies do a landing there. In theory, they could. I don't think they will be able to because they don't have any units in Gibraltar, but they could potentially land in Marseille. So we got to reinforce Marseille as soon as possible. And then we got to evacuate North Africa, right? That's the other kind of situation. We'll now switch over to the Allied production, right? I think we already did Soviet production, right? We'll do Allied production. We'll see what reinforcements they have. Nothing for December, but their production does increase substantially. They gain 10. I'm going to transfer 5 to the Mediterranean front and 5 to the Western front. So now we're at 35 for the Mediterranean front. Let's roll for that. 7 dice. Good rolls. We gain 12 for, what is that? 12 over here, plus another 12 down here. Right? So it's 24 production. Pretty much just enough to build up this field HQ. And then now we can also transfer up to half more from the Western Front. So Western Front production, I think we'll focus on HQ builds. All right. Let's try, like, we got 27 production on the Western Front. So we'll build up the field HQ, build up Army Group E, so that it needs to be built up to at least a level 2, so that when it's sent over to North Africa, it can go through an acclimatization. Presuming we have to do that if we want to take Tunisia swiftly, right? We're probably going to have to do that. So anyways, we build up 2 HQs. We have 7 production points left over. We can transfer those 7 to the Mediterranean front. That leaves us with 11 on the Mediterranean front. And it's just enough to build up a infantry. We'll build up the infantry in Algiers, and then I can also build up the last 5 for this Mediterranean HQ. Very nice. Okay. And so yeah, now the game plan is to push, push, push. Take Tripoli. Let's go ahead and take Tripoli, and then let's converge on Tunisia as soon as possible. We also get more reinforcements, right? This French unit can be deployed in Algiers. Very nice. And so now our supply lines are secure, and we can move a bunch of units uh, to the basically to east or to the east in Africa, right? And converge on Tunisia. That's the game plan. Try to converge on Tunisia as quickly as we can. And the sooner we take North Africa, the better. We gain Allied naval supremacy, and all is well. All right, so that's December. Now I could end the file here, right? I don't know. Should I continue the file? Should I stop here? I think in the last playthrough I went 1 more month. But like, we're kind of seeing the evacuation take place. We're seeing an evacuation take place overall in North Africa by the Axis. Um, the Soviets, I don't know if the Soviets are going to launch a winter operation. It doesn't seem like they're ready to just yet. So I think this might be a good note to stop, because we're basically seeing slow progress on the Eastern Front and relatively methodical progress in the Mediterranean front, right? And there's really no other progress anywhere else that we need to concern ourselves with. So I think on that note, I will end the file here. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed playing it. And looks like the Allies are gaining progress. Slow progress, but progress nonetheless. Methodical progress is what I would like to call it. And the Germans are strategically preparing for the long-term defense of Europe, at least in the Western Front, while at the same time trying to keep the initiative going here in the Eastern Front. And then the Soviet strategy is to survive, basically, and then hopefully turn the tide against the Axis wherever possible. I think that's all I got for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.